what do you think the ultimate meaning of life is? Like, as in, like, your existence of human beings, just based on your experience. What do you think? And then we'll go around the room.
Truly, and my cousin can attest to this, truly believe that life is a test, and the test is to submit to Christ and to live by the Bible and to get to heaven.
Okay, what do you
That's
think?
what I think.
I'm gonna reboot that. I don't think it is, because before the Bible existed, spirituality's been there. Do you know what I mean? Even before the Bible came to Africa, spirituality, they had like maybe like hundreds of different gods they believed in. Do you know what I mean? So I don't believe that the Bible is there. Do you know what I mean? It's the goal and be all. Do you know what I mean? But I think the meaning of life, to be honest, for me is a simple question. The simple answer. Like, I think it's what you make of life. You find your own purpose. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think there's a script you should follow.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
What do you think?
Well, if we're talking about, I don't think there is any meaning to life, but I think we're all put here to procreate and just keep on going. Literally, have babies and spread your seed.
And how I want to direct this conversation is into a particular topic where we can really bounce each other's ideas, and it's not just me talking. I'm very fascinated by this question, because I think that's one of the questions that every human being asks in their own mind, whether they don't say it verbally. I think the two things we're worried about is what happens when you die and why you're here.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because when you think about like human existence, there's so many different religions. There's so many different religions that have existed. The oldest religion that we know of in our current civilization is Hinduism. And I used to be a Christian, like dogmatic, like when I mean born again, like fire breathing dragon Christian. I was that kind of Christian, like praying in tongues and all that shit. And I could read it.
Why are you laughing?
And I can read the New Testament in Hebrew and in Greek. But the reason why I asked this question is because 2 years ago, or during the lockdown, I started going through a study, and there's certain things I saw in the Bible that didn't really add up anymore, and my views changed. And it was very emotional, very psychologically daunting for me, because I was Christian for 11 years. So for me, it's like, okay, now I was in a position where I'm like, okay, I'm agnostic. I believe that there is some higher power. I believe there's a reason for why we exist. And I'm into science as well. I'm very into physics. And I think, when you look at physics, the concept of quantum physics, that there's different dimensions, and, it's about analyzing all you're trying to break down every molecule, every particle, and every atom to its core to find an answer as to what is the essential feature of the universe and why is it here, and why do we exist the way we do. And I think no matter which way you cut it, for me, agnosticism makes more sense. That we don't really you can't really ever know, but you can have an idea, and it makes logical sense to believe that we're here for a reason. So what's your perspective on that?
So in terms of, I'm very, I wouldn't say I'm very religious, because I definitely do feel like I'm still on a journey. But what I would say is, when you saw certain things in the Bible during lockdown, and stuff like that, did you feel like you needed to know what that specific passage or whatever it was that you read, you needed to know what it meant? Yes,
because my whole view of the Bible being true was based on the predication or the assumption that the Bible is infallible. Like if you read all of the books of the Bible, all these guys, the assumption, the message of the overall message is that in the Old Testament, all these guys that are writing these books are assuming that they received divine revelation from God, and their revelation was without any error, and whatever they articulated and written down was representation of that divine message. And so for me, it's like, well, that message can't have any error, because if God is this perfect, omnipresent, the way that the Christian God is defined, or the God of the Jews is defined, is he's this big God, and he has all this power, he's majestic, and he's without error. And so whatever he writes as his word has to reflect his nature. And so if there's any statements in the Bible that seem to contradict history, contradict logic, or they seem to go against what God said previously, then why would you trust it ultimately as the only way for configuring how to live your life?
So I think in general life is complex, and I think as much as life is complex, like you said, that there's certain, like as an agnostic person, there's certain things that you just don't understand and that you question. I think it's the same thing with Christianity, and that's the reason why, like in the Bible, God says that you you're human. Like, you're not going to understand everything and the reason behind why he does certain things. Do you understand? Like, you're never going to have God's mind.
Yeah.
So, like, there's certain things in the Bible that you may not understand, but you just have to have faith. And that's what I believe. So even though certain things in the Bible don't make sense to me sometimes, like, I might look back at that same passage a few years later and it makes sense to me. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But because I've continued to keep that faith, and I haven't let go, I'm able to come back to that passage and then it will make sense to me. The Bible is a very long book. Christianity and the Bible and following Jesus is very complex. You're not going to know it, everything.
I want to give my brother here a chance to give his thoughts as well.
Okay.
Her as well. So tell me what you think about what she said and what do you think overall. What do you think the ultimate meaning of life? And it's a very broad question. Like, people don't really think about this. But I think it's an important question because I think it's core to our human experience. You know, we are very curious about this. And that's why so many different cultures have constructed so many different perspectives and ideas as to what they think is the meaning for why we exist. So what do you think, brother?
I say for the meaning, like what I said earlier, I think the meaning is you make your own meaning in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, go on.
But I'm going to let you expound, but this is around the time when we took LSD. And a lot of people might look at us as, oh, you're weird. But, you know, I look at psychedelics as something very peculiar because when I watch Joe Rogan's podcast or when I watch a lot of what he's talking about on DMT and these other things, it seems like there's certain drugs that are just there for pleasure seeking and they don't do nothing for your benefit or growth as a human. But there's these category of drugs or psychedelics which seem to open up a portal of, you know, insight to the spiritual world, which is very much a part of our real world, but it's invisible.
And I agree. Sorry to go off, but obviously when I first took shrooms, like it felt like I was in another dimension. So it was like you think there's more to life than obviously what we see in our reality. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, like when you take shrooms, it's very weird conundrum because it's like you feel like you're very insignificant, but at the same time, it's like what you think of yourself makes you, you know what I mean? On another level, like you can be as big as you think you can, or as small as you can, literally. But like shrooms, literally, it brings out your repressed feelings. That's what. Yeah. So it's like if you don't want to, if you go to a therapist, say like you don't want to speak about it, shrooms will force it out of you. That's what I got out of it. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's happy thoughts or negative thoughts, it brings it out to the forefront, and you have to deal with it. So it can be overwhelming. I think that's why some people panic when they take shrooms because it's like, oh shit, I don't want to deal with this. Do you know what I mean? This is long. You know what I mean?
Done shrooms together, like, it was the best experience of our life. Like, we were like, bro, we were talking about deep shit. Yeah. Like, we were like, bro, there's so much more to this universe than what we think. You know? And I say that as someone who, when I left Christianity, I became proper atheist for like about 2 months. Because I was like, you know what, like, okay, there's clearly nothing. This is all just men's construction of what they want to have as a psychological answer to the chaos, to make sense of the chaos in the world. But I think when you look at so many things that constitute our reality, it's so complex. Being a human is complex. Yeah. You know, you can't even define certain things that we give general terms for. So what do you think personally? I want to give you a chance.
Meaning of life to me is kind of like, it's funny because I agree with him on a sense where the meaning of life is individual to each person. Like your meaning is different to my meaning, is different to her meaning, different to his. But also I think that like when I look at the world as a whole,
the primal meaning, I know what you mean.
I'm like, our meaning is insignificant, is nothing. Like the plants even have more meaning to this world than what we do, realistically, because we destroy this earth. I know I'm taking it out of context, but we destroy this earth, the plants, the sea, everything. We destroy everything, and then here we are thinking about what's my meaning. What's your meaning? Very soon we're all gonna die. Yeah, I know that is something that's guaranteed. And then after, you're gonna be like, okay, your generations won't even know who you are unless your name is Michael Jackson or do you know what I mean?
So let me ask you this question.
What is the meaning to life?
Let me ask you this question. What do you think happens when we die?
This is sorry.
This is a very deep question because I'm so fascinated about it, and I feel like I'm the only man that is really interested because I want to know. Like,
so there's two.
Like, why am I here and where am I going next?
Two things for me. It's either you go heaven or hell, or you're going into the black nothingness.
And where's that predicated?
That's scary.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So that's the scary part for me.
But you know,
it's heaven or hell.
But you know, I want
to. Nothingness is scary as well.
But you're nothing. Yeah, but you just like okay. Before you were born, you were nothing.
Exactly. And as so it's like you go back to
Nothing.
That's
Yeah,
scary.
but you won't exist,
Well,
girl.
okay, but I want to touch on something that's very key here because I think this is I love this back and forth, but I want you. What is that predicated on? The belief that there's a heaven and hell. Where does that come from?
That's the
do you
Christian
have
in
any
me.
Empirical verification for that assumption or belief.
I have none whatsoever. I mean, I've read the Bible, but I stopped halfway because it was really long. But that's besides the point. I just see things that make me think that where do they, like, I watch films, I look into social media. Like, there was a guy the other day that was on Instagram that said he went to hell. He died and he went to hell.
I
And
think I know what you're talking about. Was he a white guy, bald guy?
No, this was a black man. He was a pastor. He was
different.
He was
Well,
a
I
pastor.
I didn't even hear about it, that's mad.
No, he was a pastor, and he was saying that he was hearing Umbrella by Rihanna in hell. That scared me because I was like, that is actually a devilish song. But okay, whatever.
That just sounds like juju gone wrong.
But the things he said,
that's what I think.
For me, it was like he was warning. It was like a warning shot. Like, he went to hell because.
So did you believe what he said?
I did. I'm gullible, I guess, because I feel like, okay, if we can't just be here and then like not go back into nothingness, but then again we came from nothingness, so then it's like as a dilemma. I actually think about this a lot, like, are we going to heaven, are we going to hell, or are we going to nothing?
So it's cut you off. Remember when you were talking off camera, like, and you were saying that energy is recycled, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So obviously on our body we got energy in it, you know what I mean? Our body runs off electricity, do you know what I mean? Like, from our heart and all that. So it would make sense that if we were reincarnated or something, or we just don't completely go into black nothingness and we just go into like some kind of spiritual world.
And this
logically,
this introduces the topic of psychedelics, because you and I have taken LSD, we've taken quite a few drugs that are based on like psychedelic experience, so like mushrooms, weed, and a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, you guys are just druggers. But no, but the experiences we had were very deep, revelational, very introspective, and very like, oh shit, like, we're gaining insight from this external reality. And it's like when you look at things like DMT, for example, I've never taken DMT, I've taken LSD, but DMT is this psychedelic drug where you smoke it, and we produce DMT scientifically in our bodies, in our lungs. It's actually scientifically proven. We also rats also produce it as well, animals produce it. So when you talk about the psychedelic experiences, the experiences where you gain insight about a reality that seems to be invisible but very much transcendent and just as real as the physical world we live in. So DMT, basically, when you take that shit, Mike Tyson, Joe Rogan, a lot of high-profile guys take it, and they have had this deep spiritual revelation where, like, you're transported into the center of the universe, and you become a part of every single fabric of the reality and universe. You become a part of every single molecule that exists, every particle and every atom that can be broken down to its smallest element, and you see the universe from the perspective of everything. And you are so sure that you've ceased to exist. And to me, it's like, and you see geometric figures, and you gain some kind of self-reflective lessons that are true of your experience and your life. And I think, that true spirituality is a reality that is transcendent from this one, the physical, but it's just as much as part of it because it's there, it's connected, but it's invisible. And going back to what my brother said over there about energy, it's the first law of thermodynamics. Where you look in physics, energy can't be destroyed or corrupted, or it can only be transferred. And energy.
So we're transferring to heaven or hell.
Well, that comes from stories, but the concept of heaven and hell goes back to Plato, because the Greeks influenced, this Jewish tradition. The early Jews didn't believe in the concept of the soul. They didn't believe that when you die, you have this continued existence that was transcendent from your physical form. They believed that when you die, you die. Like the nefesh, the breath of God was in you, and then when you cease to exist, that disappears. But it was the Greek tradition, Plato, a Neoplatonian, influence that, articulated that when you that Plato's philosophy was that there's a dual reality, that say this microphone, for example, exists. There's the idealistic version of this microphone that is more real than this one, even though it's immaterial and invisible in a different realm. And that was what his philosophy represented.
It's mind-boggling.
And I think that's
to the
retarded.
Christians.
I think that's ridiculous.
Mind-boggling to the Christians.
And I tend to agree with Aristotle's view of philosophy, which is that, you know, something is true in its essence because it impresses itself onto your sense. So for example, we know that everything that exists in this room is physical objects, and no one's gonna be like, oh, how do we know this microphone's real? You know it's real because you can see it, your senses, and there's some kind of interaction between your senses and its essence.
But some people say this might be a false reality, and literally we're
We're in the Matrix.
We're in the Matrix.
It's so
literally,
funny because
literally.
sometimes I think about parallel universes. So sometimes I'll be like,
What if?
in my mind, I'll be thinking to myself, what if this happened? So like I'll be crossing the road, a car will be coming, and I'll be like, what if I got hit by the car? A parallel universe will be, I'll be in the hospital, you know, something will be happening. Do you get what I mean? So
I do
sometimes I do
believe
feel
that.
like there is a parallel universe.
I do believe that. I feel like there's
Sometimes.
several versions of ourselves, different versions of ourselves that's lived or that is living currently. Like, I know it sounds mad, but that's taken different
I know,
routes.
it
Has,
sounds
has,
mad,
has
but
anyone
sometimes I
in
think
this
like
room
that.
had deja vu before? Because that's what I think.
I
is
have
similar.
deja
time.
vu all the
Do you know what I
time.
mean?
It's
All the time,
crazy.
yeah.
I feel like I
Yeah.
dream my future.
And do you know what? You guys will find this funny, yeah, but there was an episode of Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney Channel.
You said
There we go.
Where they kept going back in time, and then they were basically saying, so it was like witches going back in time, and they were basically saying that to us as normal human beings, it comes off as like deja vu.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I never heard of that, but
And I've never forgotten it.
But I really
So-
resonate with that film, The Matrix, because I feel like
I do
a
as
lot
well.
of times that's what we're. So if we're not there yet, we're
heading
heading
there.
there.
Yeah.
because the concept of the red pill and the blue pill is gaining information as to what is really what life is really about.
Exactly.
Versus what version of life do you want to accept that you're being forced to accept in order to fit a particular agenda that.
It's
But I
deep.
do
You have no
agree
control
with
over
the
it.
whole psychedelic
It's too deep
thing.
to even fathom.
Yeah.
When we took LSD, yeah, bro, that was you see that thing, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was rolling a joint and he was like, "Bro, you wanna try LSD?" I was like, "Bro, why are you doing this to me? You know, not anything. Okay, when it
What
comes,
did you? What was it
when it comes to
like?
crack and
What
heroin,
is it
that's
like?
a no go.
Oh,
Sticker, it's a
that's
stamp,
scary.
innit?
That
Yeah,
doesn't
it's a
exist.
stamp. Yeah, it's a
Stamp.
little stamp, but it feels like paper. So you're
Yeah,
thinking,
it's
what is this?
like a little piece.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
You
a
just put it
paper.
on
It's
your
a
tongue.
paper.
I do
a
agree
paper
with
tab
that.
basically, and when
Yeah.
you take it, it kicks in probably like 40 minutes, half an hour to 40 minutes.
Bro, for me it was 15
So
minutes.
it's-
We watching UFC fight.
So it's
Kevin
like you're
Holland versus
merging
Stephen
into
Thompson.
it.
I
Yeah,
do
literally.
agree with.
Watching UFC fight and they just turn like into like different
vision.
colours and
Yeah.
I was like, what
The visuals are even more streamed than shrooms. It's crazy.
You and your judge. Everything's judge.
No, because you know the way they start changing form and I was like,
Their faces
we
started
we both felt
melting.
nauseous. We thought we were dying. And
And
then,
you know what the weirdest thing is? When we were taking it, probably like maybe an hour or two into taking it, like we're probably feeling the full effects now. And there was one moment, where we're in a loop. And I realised it. I acknowledged that we're in a loop, innit?
Baby, yeah.
That's what made. That's what made.
It must be out now. It must be out now. Well, you say it.
I say,
What happened? What happened? What did I say?
Okay, you want me to say?
Yeah, why
sure?
not? But it's a free
Are you
I say
sure?
more. Yeah, okay. Say
Are
no
you
more.
sure?
Okay, yeah. So when we were in that loop, I acknowledged it, innit? And Femi said to me, "Oh, what do you think we're trapped?" That that's a banter. Yeah, we are.
No, you needed to
This guy-
sleep it off.
I'm like, this guy was like,
You
oh.
don't sound like you were having a bad trip.
You know what? It was a trip that was multifaceted. You experience every emotion of every aspect of life. And what I said to him was that it made me open my third eye because it was like I got to the point where I was calling people, some of my friends, and they were looking at me like they probably thought I was crazy. But I was like, look, I know you think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm very conscious. I'm more conscious than you are of your own existence. What's going on right now? And what I'm seeing is a mad thing. It's mad because, bro.
So the point
I
of
just
your
wanna
call.
make a point. I do believe in the psychedelics thing, and I think that if people are open to taking it, I do think that it's a good thing to do. And the reason behind it, I haven't personally taken psychedelics, but when you was mentioning how it kind of like makes you tap into your subconscious mind, I think that's very important. Personally, I feel like me on a personal level, healing from like my trauma and stuff like that and growing has been me being more self-aware and tapping into my subconscious mind. So tapping into like why I might exhibit certain behaviors or have certain mannerism and stuff. I'm always thinking about where that might stem from. And I think that that's important for people to heal.
That's deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
I think that's important.
Yeah,
so
it is.
I agree. I think the psychedelics thing, I want to try it personally.
What
I
would
want
you
to
like
try
it.
Isn't psychedelics just opening or you using another part of your brain that you don't usually use?
Yeah,
Remember,
but
we
people
only
find it hard to
use
do that on
But-
their
20%.
own.
But you gain
of our
insight
brain.
about so how, because there's various versions of psychedelics. There's DHT. There's ayahuasca.
Professional. Run it down.
Well, let me not speak Yoruba now. I was sure myself, but no. So there's ayahuasca, there's NND, some next thing. There's psilocybin and LSD.
Can you teaching the people them?
No, this is the thing though. This is the thing though. With these psychedelics, yeah, is that when I first tried mushrooms, it was the best time of my life. Because let me tell you why. When I got high off mushrooms, it wasn't like a pleasure-seeking drug like cocaine or MDMA or all these other drugs that people put in this category. Because a lot of people put all the drugs in the same category. If it's something you've never done before, it's bad. And that's a stigma from our culture. But a lot of these drugs, like these psychedelics, they're different. They take you on a trip where you learn a lot about yourself. You self-evaluate, and you want to become a better person. And you realize how insignificant your existence is.
Yeah.
100.
And it makes me realize, what if existence is so complex and deep that I'm just in one version of existence as a physical person, and I've just experienced something that is beyond this one by taking these drugs. And like for me, like.
But I think weed does that to you sometimes.
Yeah, we does. But you know what?
But the lower level though, on the lower level,
On the
definitely when you take
maybe on the lower level, but weed does do
To
that.
be
It makes you
honest-
start thinking about things that you wouldn't normally think about.
But this is why I think
a
I'm
normal day.
always. I feel like I don't even need drugs because I always think that like I'm always thinking that deep of how insignificant. I don't need drugs to think about it.
Yeah.
I always ponder
I'm thinking
like
that.
beyond that. Oh, okay, my existence. You know what I mean? Like we are like ants on this planet Earth. Like you know what I mean? I just see it like.
Maybe you're more naturally tapped into your third eye than other people.
Do
Then
you know
I
what
definitely think
I
so.
personally feel
But
like
on
I've
drugs,
always
imagine
been
me
like
on
that.
drugs.
I agree with you.
Imagine me
I
on
think
LSD.
I've always been like that on a smaller
Yeah.
scale, but I think that when I started smoking weed, I started
Oh, you
to.
smoke weed?
I started
You
before.
never smoke
I
weed.
don't smoke weed no more,
Oh, okay.
but I used to. So when I started smoking weed,
I
lie,
used to as well.
Huh?
Even though I've done it this morning.
Don't lie to yourself.
who?
You still smoke weed? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Baited.
It's a joke. It's a
Baited.
joke.
She got baited.
Anyways,
Mele.
no, I don't smoke weed anymore because it's not good for me personally. But I don't.
I
have
agree.
no-
Even though I've done this morning, I don't smoke weed anymore either.
Oh, I'm finished.
Listen, I was at work and a 12-hour shift. Listen, man needs to rust that
Me
thing.
personally,
You get
it's not good for me. But I don't have no qualms about people that do it. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? I used to do it, but when I started smoking weed, it started to make me think more deep.
Too deep.
And
innit?
it's too deep to the point where I actually fell into it like a depression. But like I do think that weed is a form, I don't know whether it's similar, maybe not
They're all-
on
they're
a
all
bigger
open
scale,
your eye.
but I think weed does that to you as well. You start thinking about things more deep,
Yeah.
and you start thinking about your
Drugs are
existence.
opening your
I
brain.
know somebody that said that they can tap into like they tap into like having a connection with God when they're high. I don't know
Listen,
about
when
that.
I'm high
But-
off of weed, I can sing, I can rap, I can do everything. Like I'm like superhuman, but
But you
I
know
don't
what I'll
do
say
it.
is that I know and I appreciate you guys' perspective because it's really insightful and I like learning from other people. But what from my experience, just to add to what you got lot said, my experience of like trying weed is that it really relaxes me, but it also makes me tap into a version of myself that is very creative, very philosophical.
Yeah.
Creative.
I
That's
love
that.
philosophy. I love speculating about what the fuck am I here for.
We know.
And a lot of people,
He's talking about Naruto. Who did he say?
no.
He
I
said-
didn't say that.
Or who did you say?
Naruto's
You
a
said
waste man
you,
thing
you
too.
said
That's not a waste man,
the
you
man
get
said
me?
I'm a
But,
philosopher.
alright, but no. But for me, I think like life is very complex. I think energy is the ultimate thing because if you take away when you take ayahuasca or toad, a lot of these
Ayahuasca.
psychedelics are based on chemicals that are released from plants or animals, and something like DMT is the closest thing to experiencing death, because they say that you
Maybe
are
that's why.
pumped into the center of the universe and you're formless and you're so sure that you're dead, and it's like why? Okay, if this is just purely a chemical reaction, purely just my brain just fucking tripping out. Why do you see things that you don't normally see? And why do you see things that seem to be out of the ordinary, that transcend this reality, that make you question whether there is another world or whether there is more
Another
to this reality?
dimension.
And a lot of people on
Have you
DMT
guys-
say they see a lot of the same things. Like they say,
They
go to
Joe
the
Rogan
same
will say they see the
place.
elves. They see the elves.
Yeah, and the
obviously-
jokers.
Yeah, the yeah.
But this is the thing. I feel like people.
So I want to let him.
Oh, sorry,
I want to let
Yeah,
him
as
finish.
I was saying, Joe Rogan and other people experience the same thing. So obviously, it's like it's one of the things where it must be close to death. It must be a thing where it's like a pre-visit or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
It's like a taste to
Yeah.
the reality that transcends this one, and that's why I believe in spirituality. I believe in the yin and the yang. That this is a very old Eastern concept that you know, there's dark energy and there's light energy, and everything's based off of energy. Like, even just scientifically, that's true. Like, there's energy in everything, even in the oxygen particles that we breathe in. There's energy in it. So where does that come from? And energy is eternal. So is matter. So prior to the Big Bang, the state of all the Big Bang is merely an expansion from this current state of the universe, or the state that the universe was in a dense soup, to the current state that it's in. It expanded. It's an expansion.
Don't most scientists disagree with the Big Bang now?
No. Well, not necessarily. A lot of they disagree with. A lot of physicists disagree with the state in which the universe existed in prior to the Big Bang, which is that a lot of scientists are now saying it was eternal. Whereas prior to the Big Bang, based on relativity, Einstein's theory of relativity, the concept was that the universe, the Big Bang was the proof that the universe had a beginning. That there was a time in which the universe didn't exist and then it came into existence. So that's when a lot of religious people said, see, like Kepler or you know.
So how do you think the Big Bang started? You can't just randomly be about nowhere.
The Big Bang was based on a collision of the universe existed in a it's the energy.
Meteorite.
It existed in a dense soup, right? It was very compact, and if you look, and this is predicated on the theory of inflation.
So where did that compact soup come from? You're saying
no one ultimately knows. But
I'm saying
came from
God. He goes deep and delve into this.
Well, this is why.
But how we observe the Big Bang as a theory that is coherent is based on the way in which we measure the universe's current state, and that the universe went through this period of inflation in which the universe currently expanded rapidly from its inception or conception. So we don't know where these gases came from. We don't know where it came from, and that's why I personally believe that there's more to reality than just science.
Science, yeah.
But I think science gives us a lot of insight as to some information we can gain as to why we're here, but the rest of the answer is found in spirituality, because, you know, all the Big Bang is basically that the universe it went from one state to another. It expanded. And Hubble's law is that if you have a balloon and it expands, it gets bigger and bigger, you run that process, it gets smaller and smaller until a point in which it didn't exist. That's what the Big Bang is. And, you know, that's predicated on, you know, a lot of radioactive energy that we observe from the if you look at the stars, we look at the stars and the way it operates as it happened billions of years ago, because of the distance it takes from starlights to travel from their location to how we observe them through telescopes. So the universe is very, very obscure and very crazy and weird, and I think that's what makes me think that there's something more, because how do these things just happen? You know what I'm saying?
I was just going to say, he made a point earlier that how, and I do watch the Joe Rogan show, and how they all went to the same places when they tried DMT and ayahuasca. But then I was also thinking about messaging. We all kind of visit or see the same messages. Could that not be a reason why they all go to the same place?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, like, more time, okay, you watch a Joe Rogan show, you probably watch it, you've probably come across it, most people in this room have probably come across it, and it's the same with most of the media. We see the things that we take in. So I feel like that has a point in which it connects. When you're going to another dimension, you're seeing the same thing as I'm, and
because what I was going to say is that I don't. So are you guys saying, because I personally feel like everybody's view of life is
similar?
No,
different?
Independent to them.
I agree with that.
Of course.
So when I say independent to them, the way they view life, the way they view things is dependent on their experience, how they've grown up, also dependent on, I don't know, their outward experiences and this and that. So for example, some people might grow up having a negative view of life because they've grown up in a negative environment. Some people might grow up having a positive view of life and they're happy about life because they've had a good upbringing. Do you get what I mean? So I personally, I don't know whether when you guys your LSD or whatever, your experience, did you guys have the same trips?
No.
And this and that?
No, completely different.
He can take. Okay, so this is based on our personalities as well. I'm naturally a guy that is open. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't give a fuck. Kind of like, I say what's on my mind. He's very reserved, very calm, collected. And so in our trip, I'm a fighter. That's my passion. Like, my main passion is boxing, Muay Thai, and I train. And
MMA.
Yeah, I do. I'm thinking about MMA. I've been into MMA since.
Oh, so you're just boxer?
Well, no, I do boxing and Muay Thai, but I did a bit of grappling. But MMA is something that incorporates all of them, and I've just been into MMA since 2011. Yeah. But in that whole trip, when it was hitting me deep, I started shadowboxing, thinking demons are trying to kill me. And I was hitting them. My man was sitting there like how he is now, and just like,
just another day.
How's my man calm with this? This thing is killing my cells,
because
bro.
what's in your subconscious mind is different to what's in
Yeah.
your
And I
subconscious
could-
mind, depending on his experience, basically.
And you're right. And I could feel exactly what he was thinking without him telling me.
Yeah.
And he vice versa. He could tell that. He could tell my past.
Well, you was doing the
No.
most if you was boxing the
But
shadows.
before even that, he could tell that you've been through a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You can tell that. I
Yeah.
can just see because the colors change, and depending on your emotion, when you're on an LSD trip, your emotions reflect the particular colors change. Colors are.
So you were seeing colours, yeah?
Yeah.
Both
Both
seeing
seeing
colours,
colours. Both
thing.
seeing colours. Yeah.
Like your
I said I can hear the colours.
Your vibrational levels of consciousness are increased when you're on these psychedelics, and that's what makes me think that there's something more to this world than just. And these things are just the keys that maybe the universe wants us to embrace, and that's why previous cultures like the Egyptians did that.
They did
I think,
psychedelics,
as you said, as he was touching on what he was going through, maybe his trip was maybe because he was going through, obviously, going through pain, whatever. But I think we've all been through pain. I've been through pain. Maybe I've learned to accept the pain. Like I've gone through it. It's born.
And maybe my thing is
Depending on the
maybe the pain
character.
continues to encourage me to be who I'm meant to be.
Yeah. Maybe it's that.
The more I'm at a point in my life now where I'm so secure with it now, I can talk about it. But a few years ago, I was like, fuck that, I ain't talking that. I mean, I don't have pain.
You
But-
get
But
to an
that-
age
see-
where you're not able to
But I
express
personally
yourself.
feel like for you to actually deal with it, like for you to actually deal with whatever it is, whatever trauma you've been through, you have to like visualize it, take it. Like some people, they have trauma and it's like they just compartmentalize. So it's like they don't
That's a
even know
fact.
that the behaviors that they're exhibiting or the things that they're doing is because of whatever they've compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And it might be behaviors that they don't like about themselves, but they don't know how to change it.
Yeah.
So I think, the way to do that is for you to actually discuss your trauma
And
to
take
talk about it and to
LSD.
understand it.
And do you know what? And this is going to be closing thoughts now because we've got to wrap up now. But like, I don't think everyone should take these psychedelics because some people it's overwhelming for their mind. It
Yeah,
depends
of
where
course,
everyone's
Where you're at mentally.
everyone's brain activity and chemistry is different and makeup.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. You know what I
do you
mean? Because I feel like when people say, "Oh, you're gonna have a trip on LSD or whatever shrooms, whatever," I think you're probably supposed to have that trip, but I don't think you probably have it again. Maybe the second or third time you have it, because I think you're supposed to. Some people, as you said, have gone through so much, and it overwhelms them. But it's like it's like basically it's like, for example, like I'm gonna use an analogy, like when you're say if you just been eating junk food most of your life, and when you eat something healthy and detox, you're gonna be throwing up. You're gonna be, do you know what I mean? You're gonna be in the toilet, and that's what it is, isn't it? It's just like
a change of environment.
It's like a wake up call.
Yeah.
It's what these psychedelics do is that they wake you up to the idea that where your mind is focused on, there's certain physical conditions that limit our desire to ascribe to become more deep and have our third eye open.
Yeah.
But when you take these psychedelics, it's like a gateway into this
Yeah.
other realm that is very much a part of our world every day, but we just don't see it.
I agree.
Because
I think some
we're
people
not-
are more
we're not on that
genetically
conscious level.
predisposed to
Yeah.
do that work by themselves, so without LSD, but then some people might not do that. Like their brain just doesn't allow them
Facts.
To do
tap
it.
into that,
Yeah.
and LSD might help them with that.
Yeah. But guys, we have to wrap up now.
Yeah.
I've really
Wrap
enjoyed this
it up.
conversation because I love talking about this shit.
So do I.
I know, likewise. We can talk about this off camera. But thank you very much. If you can introduce yourself.
I'm Patricia, aka Wumi Little School. No, I'm joking. You can just call me Patricia or Wumi, whatever. Whatever
here.
you want to call me.
Ridge, but aka Yak, whatever. I'm gonna be obviously doing my own YouTube channel as well. Regarding, it's gonna be related to drinks. So you know what I mean,
Nice.
alcoholic drinks.
My
So you'll
guy.
soon see me doing my thing as well.
Yeah.
I'm Mary. I don't have an AKA. But
Bele.
I don't have an AKA. But me and my cousin, we are both venturing into doing our own podcast about mental health in the black community.
And that's going to be our next
Really?
episode soon.
Yeah, our podcast is focusing solely on mental health, how we can help ourselves,
And building
how we
a
can
community.
tap into our childhood trauma, and build a community and help each other.
I really love that. And and I would love to support that as well.
We need
And,
more of that actually, because black people don't talk about mental health as well.
Honestly, no, we don't.
But my name is Femis90, and my podcast is Supplying the Mind, and it's been great to have you guys. And I'd love to have you guys in future episodes.